Welcome to Please Make This Movie, a podcast where we pitch a sequel, prequel, or remake to a beloved motion picture. I'm Storm, joined once again by Luke, and today we will be continuing our discussion of the Star Wars prequels with Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So Luke, leading up to this conversation, I reached out to you and requested that we both rewatch this movie in preparation for this discussion.
Yes.
And I made the claim that Attack of the Clones might be the most rewatchable of the Star Wars prequels.
Yes.
And after having watched it or really trying to watch it, I was not as engaged as I thought I would be.
Mm.
I walk back that opinion 100%. This movie, the nice way to say it, no, you know what? There's no point in being nice. This movie fucking sucks.
Yeah.
There's like nuggets of good ideas throughout the entire movie, but overall, I mean, it's like a slog.
Yeah. Well, so you made that statement like this is the most rewatchable of the prequels. And when you said that, I was like, well, I remember Attack of the Clones being probably my least favorite. And then I went back and rewatched it. Like I texted you just whenever that was a couple days ago and was rewatching it. And actually, I found that I thought it actually kind of is like the most rewatchable from a not in a good way, but just like because I guess we'll get into it. But it's such a weird movie that it actually has some value in that.
I agree,
Mhm.
and I mean, there's no point in even holding back at all. Let's just get right into the Attack of the Clones. If this is like a review of it or more of like a criticism, I guess the last time we kind of just shit all over the Phantom Menace. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point in not doing that.
Mhm.
I know what you're saying, and that's exactly why I wanted to rewatch it through the lens of it being the most rewatchable one or the most
Yeah.
entertaining of the prequels, because there's all these insane story elements, locations, characters, dialogue, decisions. It's all insane.
Yeah.
And I feel like there might have been a good movie in there if they'd done a couple rewrites of the script. But just in terms of like broad strokes, what you see, what they give you, it should be fun. But my big thing is while I was watching it, the pace, maybe it's the directing. Like the flow of the scenes, the mise en scène, I guess, just felt like it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like it almost this is a weird comparison, and I'm not knocking the thing I'm comparing it to here, but it felt like I was watching an episode of TNG, like that style of direction, like flat television direction, but in a major motion picture with crazy amounts of CGI.
Yeah. I can see that definitely.
If you ever saw the first Avengers movie, the Joss Whedon Avengers movie, it's a similar vibe where there's something going on that looks flat.
Yeah. Like there's just so many characters on screen. Yeah, you just have to like shoot it from way far away.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff I was noticing when a lot of movies shoot completely on green screen or on blue screen or with computer generated background. But with this movie, you can really tell like, okay, in that corner of the screen, that person jumping out of that spaceship, that's a real person on a green screen. It's like a certain square, and then the rest of the frame is pretend. I feel like in this movie more than it's probably the same way in Revenge of the Sith, but it's been a while since I've seen that one. But more than most movies, I just can tell how pretend and limited the space of the actors is. And there's that big thing. I know, we've both seen the Mr. Plinkett reviews on Red Letter Media, but that like walking shot that they criticize where it's just two characters kind of walking in a straight line with a tracking the cameras on
in the library.
Yeah, in the library, and then in Camino, when they're in Camino, it's kind of the same thing. In Geonosis, there's a scene like that. The stuff that when I rewatch it that I like the most, and this is weird, I am surprised that I'm saying this. It's the stuff on Naboo.
I agree.
Because it looks like a real place.
I agree.
It's the only time in the entire movie, pretty much. Well, Tatooine as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, totally.
The Anakin stuff, the stuff that is executed so poorly. but it looks real for a
Yeah.
moment, and it breaks up the fucking monotony of this computer generated mess.
Yeah, and like I was watching it and kind of like it's hard not to. I don't think it was intentional. Like I think it was just like incompetence mixed with, they had this like amazing technology at the time. Why not do these insane locations, like on Coruscant and
Yeah.
Camino? But then when it would like juxtapose between that and Naboo, it felt intentional, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, well, okay, so, like, Coruscant and Camino, both look awesome, like, on their own.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
if I just saw an image of, like, the CGI location, it's like, "Holy shit, that's badass." That's blowing my mind. That's taking me away to that imaginative place I wanna be. I wanna feel like a little kid in awe of this fantasy world, and they do that at face value.
Hmm.
But then once we start getting into the scenes, the way the information is being given to you, I don't know, man. I don't really know another thing I can compare it to, like Spy Kids 3D.
Hmm.
You remember that movie where
Yeah.
it's like that's intentionally super fake.
Right.
This feels like we're on the same kind of. It's on the same level almost,
Yeah.
but it's Star Wars, so that's particularly disappointing. The other thing,
Right.
because we could spend all day tearing this movie apart,
Yeah. Totally.
um, and it's been done, and
Yes.
the criticisms that we've seen, that we're probably parroting to an extent
Mhm.
are valid.
Mhm.
That's the main takeaway I have from this rewatch. But so
Mhm.
something that's pretty weird in this movie, Anakin is all of a sudden, he's Hayden Christensen. Time has
Mhm.
passed, and it's like, so he's got a lot to. There's a lot riding on him showing up and being this character,
Yeah.
and I don't think he necessarily. We said this last time. I don't think he's that bad.
No, I don't.
And I think he is trying to do a thing
Mhm.
that the direction of the movie is not honoring, and I think it actually honors something that you talked about in our last podcast, which is that Anakin can't be that good of a guy to
Mhm.
begin with.
Mhm.
So Hayden Christensen kind of plays him like he's a bit of a creep. He definitely in his one-on-one alone scene with Padme, he's
Mhm.
being way forward in a
Yeah.
unwelcome way.
Yeah.
He's, like, insubordinate to Obi-Wan, he gets
Yeah.
angry,
Yeah.
so I think he did some work, and he was making decisions that just were not being supported by the music, the editing,
Mhm.
the camera movement,
Mhm.
um
Do you remember when they kiss, like, for the first time and the music swells, and then it, like, cuts off super fast because it's like,
like, she pulls away,
yeah,
and
and then
it
the music just like like
yeah, it's
cuts.
like, "No, we can't."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, when they're, like, out on a like, a dock or
Mhm.
something looking out over the water, and then it cuts to a firelit dinner.
Oh, man.
That stuff. So, yeah, what I want to say here is like, Hayden Christensen gets a bad rep for these movies, and the writing is bad. I don't think he's the right fit for the character, but I think he is trying something. I think there's acting there. Natalie Portman, on the other hand, has proven time and time again that she is a
Mm.
fantastic actress,
Mhm.
capable of giving very strong performances. In this movie, I don't know what she's doing, but it's like she's barely there, and I think it's
Yeah.
probably a failing of the writing and directing again, where she just was like, "I don't know what to do, so I'm gonna work with what I'm being given, and if what I'm being given is nothing, then here we are."
Yeah.
But I don't know if we talked about this last time, but you compare her Padme to Leia from the prequel or from the original movies, and then even Rey in the sequels, and it's like those are characters. They've got a
Mhm.
lot going on. It's like, who is Padme? What's she about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know. A lot of the side characters, the supporting cast is fine.
Mhm.
And if the leads and the movie were better, there'd be no complaints there. I'd say pretty much the entirety of the supporting cast is doing a good job.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
and Ewan McGregor is a treat as Obi-Wan. This is
Mhm.
like the Obi-Wan show for like half the movie.
Yeah.
And that stuff is great. It just looks so silly. He's involved in so many of those bad scenes where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, they're just walking on one CGI hallway and
Mhm.
everything is fake and he doesn't know what's going on around him.
Yeah.
But he's trying.
Oh,
He is
totally.
he is trying.
Yes.
Uh one who I really like in this, one actor, and we kind of I don't know if you've seen The Mandalorian yet. but Tamora Morrison as Jango Fett,
I was gonna say that.
uh, he kills it, man. He
I agree.
really, he set something in my mind. That's probably the best takeaway, or the biggest takeaway as a child I had from this film was,
Mhm.
like, okay, now I know what these clones are. They will never in my brain be anything other than, a million replications of this man.
Mhm.
And then his Jango Fett, that informs what I would think like Boba Fett would be because he's
Yeah.
also a clone. And I don't want to, if you haven't seen The Mandalorian, I'm going to stop talking about it there because I will say spoilers.
Yeah, I've seen the
But,
first season.
okay.
Mhm.
Just, they're making a Boba Fett show. So that man is getting the chance to flex
Right.
that these chops again. And that's where I'll leave that because I want you to watch it and experience it.
Awesome. Yeah, no,
Um,
I completely agree. When I was watching, I was like, "Oh, this actor's doing a great job." And even
oh,
his
he's
son does really well, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah.
Good kid actor.
Yeah, they do a good job of, I think kind of bringing in their, because they're Maori, from New
Mm.
Zealand. They kind of bring in, feels like, some of that culture a little bit, like, it feels like these islander people, and I don't know if it has to do with the fact that Camino is like a oceanic planet because 'cause they're
Mm.
not natively from there, but that's where you meet them.
Mhm.
I don't know. I love it. I will say, uh, one thing that I've always noticed and I've always criticized because Attack of the Clones is the first movie I ever saw in theaters where I could recognize, even at a young age, that I was watching a bad movie.
Mhm.
Even if there were things that were entertaining me, I knew while I was watching, I was like, "Uh oh, this isn't very good." And it was disappointing. But one thing I've always noticed and I've always had a problem with is Boba Fett and Jango Fett when the Kaminoan introduces Obi-Wan
Yes.
to them. They speak in a
Yeah.
native language to one
Mhm.
another to speak secretively.
Yeah, he tells him to go close the, like, closet door.
Yeah, and he said, I don't know what language it is. Maybe it's a real language. Maybe it's something they made up for the movie. But then later, they are alone aboard the ship, the two of them, Oba and
Mm.
Django, and they get into a firefight with Obi-Wan, kind of a chase, and they speak one-liners
Mhm.
in English.
Mhm.
And I mean, come on, like that's one of those things that when you hear people speaking and if you have to read subtitles in a movie, that broadens a world so immensely
Yes.
immediately. Like, oh, there's languages in this world.
Mhm.
That's great. And not everyone speaks English. Maybe
Yes.
yeah, it just didn't make any sense. At the
No.
time, it was like, well, okay, I thought we just established these guys are more comfortable talking in their native tongue to one another. That'd be great. And then it
Yeah.
could, then the clones could have their own language
Oh, that's a good
because
idea.
that's that language. So then maybe like you have scenes where I mean, this would be complicated, so I could see why they would program it out of them. But where
Mhm.
like Obi-Wan in the third movie or Mace Windu or the other Jedi generals are to each other speaking English, and then when they give orders to the clones, they speak in whatever that other language is.
Mhm.
Just it always felt like a weird missed opportunity and
It's
really
yeah.
just an oversight to simplify the movie for little kids.
Yes, I agree completely.
But yeah, that always bothered the shit out of me.
Yeah, totally. No, yeah, missed opportunity, absolutely.
All right, so I'm jumping back into it here. I do want to give this movie, credit where credit's due, and there are
Mhm.
some angles of Attack of the Clowns that are cool, like the planets, the locations, the artistry, and the CGI, and the world building with the characters. That's amazing.
I agree.
It is a feat. It's just what we're given as the audience. Our like window into this world is unfortunately wielded by George Lucas, who
Yeah.
I think just isn't a good. Like he did not have the goods visually, like as a director. World building wise, scope, he's the guy. Pushing the technology, he's the guy. But then
Mhm.
like behind the lens, he's definitely not the guy.
No, I just yeah.
But I wanted to praise the music. Uh
Absolutely.
that's like the one thing that if the music wasn't so good, I mean, this movie would probably just be a big old fat turd. But
Totally.
because that John Williams score, dude, the what's Across the Stars, the one it sounds like the theme from Hook, which he also
Mm.
composed.
Oh,
But,
nice.
it really does sound like it. It's the, like, Anakin and Padme love theme. I
Okay.
it's great. I think it's really well done, and then in this movie, there's a use of the theme song from the previous movie, Duel of the Fates, when Anakin is going to
Mm.
Tatooine to save his mom, which I included in my pitch for my episode 1 because I think,
Right.
I mean, as maybe unearned as that sequence is, yeah, that is really cool, and
I
I think that
agree.
feels like a definitive like Darth Vader moment.
I completely agree.
I guess any other notes, any other things you want to hit on Attack of the Clones before we move into our own new versions?
Yeah, I would just say, and I think we talked about it a little bit over text, but just like it doesn't fit like the in Attack of the Clones in the first like the reason I think that it's kind of rewatchable is at least in the first like I don't know 45 minutes there's like the action scene, the chase on Coruscant when they're chasing the shapeshifter bounty hunter who tried to kill Padme.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't, it's zany and it's like doesn't make a lot of sense. Like the Jedi's are like cops
Yeah.
and it's just completely like crazy, but it is fun and I did want to give them credit just for like, it sets up it's kind of a cool mystery. Like they catch the shapeshifter and the shapeshifter gets a dart in the neck, and then even though Dexter Jetster is like a total meme, it's like
He's cool.
so stupid. I
It's
thought it was
fun.
cool. Yeah, I was having a good time. That was like the only fun. There's though these movies are so like miserable and boring that
Yeah.
even the stupid stuff is like, "Ugh, at least this is somewhat fun and creative."
Yeah. I don't know about, the little droid that comes by and is like, "Freshen your Nakatina." That's not, that's
Yeah,
a problem for
it's
me.
so weird. Yeah,
But
oh my
But
god.
Dexter himself,
Mhm.
and, like, him having a diner and him also being, like, a old weapons expert that
Yeah.
underworld people go to, and Obi-Wan, because
Mhm.
Obi-Wan's got the connections.
Mhm.
That feels like something from new Star Wars, like from The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So I appreciate Dexter Jetster
Me
as the
too.
character and an idea, but just, yeah, that scene, the diner is the
That's
problem for me.
so wacky. Yeah, she's like, "Do you want a cup of Jawa juice or something?" I don't know.
Yeah.
I all that kind of stupid stuff is I just appreciate it. And like when they go to the club and like Obi-Wan gets it, he's like, "I need a drink." And like
Yeah.
that dude sits next to me, he's like, "You want to buy some death sticks?"
Yeah,
Like
so
it's
in the
fun.
Star Wars canon, there are several drugs that exist. I don't know
Mm.
how I ended up on the Wikipedia page about this, but
No.
a while back I was legitimately looking at this. So there's like spice, spice,
Mm.
which is a reference to Dune,
Right.
and there's the spice mines, and they
Mhm.
reference that all over. And that's just it's like I assume it's the same thing. Like you
Yeah.
huff too much spice, you get like spacey superpowers.
Mhm.
But death sticks, the reason they're called death sticks is because with every one you take, they actually take time off of your life.
Interesting. Why
Yes,
would
so
you
it's
do it? Because it
yeah,
feels good or something?
I don't fucking know, man. Why would you do it if that's the guarantee? Like
Yeah.
that, there was a movie, a sci-fi movie with Justin Timberlake,
Mhm.
where that was like the whole thing was you had instead of life, you had like a time instead of
Mhm.
currency, you traded your time to be alive. That's what it sounds like. Just like,
Mhm.
but just the exact opposite, where you're giving money to die sooner intentionally.
Mhm.
Kind of sad,
Yeah, totally. But that's cool world building.
a little bit. That that guy. When I was rewatching it this last time, that guy came up, and I was like, hell yeah, there it is. And then I
Mhm.
thought about it for a few minutes, and I was like, that shouldn't have happened.
No. No, yeah, now that we're watching these, I don't know, when I was a kid or when I actually cared about these, I was like, that's stupid, but now it's just like I appreciate just anything that isn't.
Well, let me ask you this: if instead of it being I don't know. That guy that guy looks like Idea, the rapper. If it
Yeah.
hadn't have been Idea, coming up and selling him death sticks, and it had just been, some, like, slug-looking
Mm.
alien, and instead of, saying, "Hey, you wanna buy some death sticks?" It's like, and it's, like, holding, the drugs, and then
Mhm.
Obi-Wan's like, "No, no, 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 this is"
Mhm.
and he does the same thing, like, "You don't
Yeah.
wanna sell me this, you wanna" would that save the scene?
I don't know. I don't have both ways work for me. I'm totally cool with like
Okay.
I love that that guy's just going for it and it's fun. It just adds some flavor to like a sterile movie,
Yeah.
you know?
I do like that they go in there, they bust that place up.
Yeah.
They chop someone's arm, like, off,
Yeah.
and then everyone it gets quiet and everyone looks over for a second, and then they do that thing where it's like, "No, no, 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 we're not getting
Mhm.
into that." And that's exactly the type of Star Wars that I like to see because it feels more like a gangster situation or a crime situation than
Yeah.
like a orderly like a military thing, which is what the Jedi are in
Mhm.
these movies.
Yeah, which makes yeah, we both know that makes no sense, but
Yeah, yeah, you wanna see the seedy underbelly. You wanna see the dirty grittiness of the Star Wars world. That's where it's
mhm.
at, and that's where seemingly that's where they're going back to.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, so Attack the Clones. There's some
Mhm.
fun stuff in there,
Mhm.
maybe rewatchable, but, just keep your expectations where they need to be when
Yeah.
you watch this movie.
Yeah, maybe, like, the first hour is fun for just, like, a f if you wanna,
Yeah,
like, make fun of something, but then, yeah, it's hard to get
yeah,
through.
the ending is pretty stupid overall.
Mhm.
Like, the whole 3rd act, the Geonosis
Mhm.
sequence, I don't even know what to make of that. Count Dooku, like I've always maintained that Count Dooku, could have been an amazing Star Wars character, and they
Mhm.
have Christopher Lee's an incredible actor, and
Yes.
in the expanded lore, there's so much going on with him. He was Qui-Gon's master, he's like an idealist,
Oh,
he
yeah.
has, like, good reasons for supporting, the Separatist movement over
Mm.
the Republic,
Mhm.
um, and he's, like, one of the people who believes in, like, that the Jedi Order is a little bit, maybe misguided by their own discipline,
Right.
um but that is not given to you in this movie at all. He's just like
No.
Dracula,
Yeah.
and that's why they got Christopher Lee
Yeah,
because
totally.
it's like, here's Dracula for a few scenes, and then he's gonna have a weird curved
Yeah.
lightsaber
Yeah,
that
totally.
also I don't know, man, that feels, like, phallic for
Yeah, it was
sure.
weird.
I don't know if that's a reference to a certain, like, fighting style or a type of weapon in the real world.
Yeah.
As a kid, I remember being like, "What's going on?
Mhm.
Why like, double-bladed lightsaber made sense. Now is there
Mhm.
just gonna be a gimmick to the bad guy lightsaber every
Right.
time?"
Yeah.
And there wasn't in episode 3, but then the new ones, Kylo Ren has a
Mhm.
gimmicky, weird lightsaber.
Mhm.
So and then, like, in The Mandalorian, there's a gimmicky lightsaber.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it comes into play. No spoilers again, but they
Mhm.
do it's like a echoing I don't think you need that. I think Star Wars lightsabers are cool already. You
Yeah.
don't have to, like, "This lightsaber can spin."
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
well, then also, General Grievous has, like, what, 4 lightsabers or whatever?
yeah, yeah, but you know what? I give that a pass a little bit. I
Mm,
don't know, General Grievous, that's episode 3. I think there's something there
I
with
agree.
General Grievous where, like, even though he's stupid, it's like, kinda the opposite of Count Dooku, like,
Mhm.
Grievous showing up in that movie, I don't need any backstory. Like, he
Mm.
walks in and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's the robot general for sure."
Mhm.
This insane, like, lizard spider person trapped in a
Mhm.
robot body, and it's this big, like, homage to or not homage, but foreshadowing to Anakin's fate as Darth Vader because Grievous
Mm.
is like an organic being inside of a robot suit. I don't know, that one,
Mhm.
visually, it works instantly, for me at least, now,
I agree.
and maybe this is because we're so separated from it. I'm sure when I first saw this movie, I was like, "Who the fuck is General Grievous?"
Mm.
And why aren't we being told anything other than, like, here he is, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, over time, my opinion on that character in particular has changed, I think, immensely.
Mhm.
Even, like, yeah, him having all those lightsabers because he has a bunch, but they're regular lightsabers.
Right. There's his
So
spoils of war.
yeah, yeah, and, in some expanded universe stuff, I remember a comic years ago where Boba Fett, he fought Darth Vader with a lightsaber that he had because he had collected lightsabers from all the Jedi he'd killed in his
Ooh,
travels.
I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it kind of felt like that. I think Grievous even does the thing where he shows Anakin like, "Hey, in my cloak here, I've got a bunch of lightsabers,"
Yeah.
which was is kind of the same that same sequence. But okay, so we should transition into our pitches here,
Let's do it.
because we both kind of came at this from different angles the last time, so we've got our own individual canons to work from.
Mhm.
And now you had told me that you had modified some things from your original episode 1 pitch
Mhm.
to line up with some of the story beats for your new one.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, in that case, do you want to go ahead and outline those and go into your pitch?
Yeah, totally. So I will try to make it brief. So from just like a recap of my episode one was essentially that our main character's name is Skywalker. He is a slave on a mining colony. He's a mechanic. He escapes the mining colony with a humanoid woman. One of our other protagonists. She didn't have a name in the last time I pitched it, so I gave her the name Kira. Her kind of the thrust of my episode one rewrite was that they are or that she is on a treasure hunt that was set up by the Hut crime syndicate to go find this precious gem called the Basilica. And I took that name and kind of the idea of a treasure hunt from a comic book that I read. But so what I have done now to fit my episode two pitch is that actually in episode one, Kira, who is our again our female protagonist, she actually has the Basilica already, and
Ah.
so she's being pursued by the other mercenaries that are involved in this treasure hunt. And so when she crash lands on the mining colony and Skywalker helps her fix her ship and they escape together, they have the Basilica with them. And I also mentioned in our previous pitch that Skywalker has a little pet creature, and I named this pet creature Clover, so that's its name.
Nice.
Just for like kids, and
Uh-huh.
but also it's a like a little gremlin mogwai guy. Also, we see throughout episode one that because we learn throughout episode one that after Skywalker is badly injured trying to defend Kira from the bounty hunter who ship she stole and essentially stole the Basilica from. This is kind of our main bad guy in episode one and episode two, and his name is Ganix. And he
Awesome.
so we learn in the fight that where Ganix takes back the Basilica, he takes back his ship when he catches up with them when they meet Ben to like refuel, and they're on the seedy underbelly planet. So we have our three main characters, and then Ganix is our main bad guy. We learn that Skywalker is a clone. He's been cloned many times, and because of being cloned so many times, his lifespan is very short, and he has all these problems. And we visualize that with him coughing like specks of blood into like a handkerchief periodically. So
Whoa.
that's kind of just we see. So part of when he gets hurt really bad, he loses an arm, so he gets a robotic arm, and he also gets a respirator on his face. So he's starting to become a little bit of the Darth Vader. He has like a metallic kind of wheeze, a little bit, nothing major, just very basic. And I think that's oh, and Ben, because we meet Ben, Obi-Wan. So we have this kind of love triangle, or our three heroes, our friends. We also have Clover, who's the pet, and then Ben has a droid friend, or his like essentially the Chewie and Han relationship is Ben, and his robot's name is Lugnut. And they're so we have that. So we have like five main character friends, and then Ganix is our bad guy. That was where my episode one ended. Was our team is like, all right, we got to go and catch Ganix. We got to get back the Basilica. We'll split the prize money. And the problem was that when Ganix took back his ship that Kira had stolen, on board was Clover and Lugnut. They were still on board, so they have to go. Our three main characters have to get their friends back, and also get the Basilica back, split the prize money, that kind of thing. So I actually made that the end of that's our low point kind of thing in Act two of episode one. So the final act of episode one is that our team zooms off to intercept Ganix before he reaches Nal Hutta, where the Hut world where they're returning the Basilica to. And while Ganix and his posse celebrate and quarrel over splitting the prize money, they discover Lugnut and Clover are hiding in the storage compartments. One of Ganix's crew members wants to just push Lugnut out of the airlock and eat Clover, but Ganix realizes that Lugnut could be useful as a mechanic droid, and Clover could be a good gift for one of the Huts trying to curry some further favor. So pleased with himself, Ganix orders his crew to jump to hyperdrive and return to Nal Hutta. However, because Skywalker never had time to finish all of the repairs, during the jump, the ship violently sputters and stalls, sending Ganix and his crew adrift. And we hear, Ganix like, those scum, they wrecked my ship. And he points at Lugnut and he's like, let's see how useful you can be. Ganix orders his pilot to make an emergency landing on the nearest rock with any kind of life signs. And this is the planet Fantor 5. It's a forest planet, kind of like the moon of Endor. Ben, Kira, and Skywalker take Ben's ship to intercept Gannix. The computer on board Ben's ship informs them that because there's a tracking device on Lugnut, they see that they're on Vantor 5. And none of them have heard of the planet, and the computer has little information on it because it's been uninhabited for centuries. Ben suggests that they land in a remote area and they'll use stealth to retrieve their friends in the Basilica. As our heroes enter the lower stratosphere of Fantor 5, we see that one of Gannix's crew members, as they've already landed and set up their camp, spots our hero's ship flying low over the forest. He grins devilishly and informs his crew, "We've got company." Then we jump cut to Ben in the pilot seat with Kira and Skywalker over his shoulder. Skywalker asks, "Do you think they know that we're following them?" And attempting to hide his nervousness, Ben replies with false confidence and a chuckle, "Nah." And then just like jump. That's cut. That's the end of episode 1. That was a bit long-winded, but if you want, I can now just get into episode 2.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I like those adjustments and changes, and particularly that third act cliffhanger.
This is episode 2. We open on a flashback to the planet Nal Hutta with an exterior shot of a lavish but sinister palace. Think of like a nightmare version of the Taj Mahal, and it's shrouded in purple smog and surrounded by swamps. This is the headquarters of Zorba the Hutt, the patriarch and supreme leader of the Hutt crime syndicate. Inside of the palace, there is a wild, debaucherous party happening with drunken aliens cheering over a gladiator pit where monsters are grappling in deadly combat. But above the noise, in a private suite, Zorba, the aging crime boss, sits before his 3 offspring, Embra, Malta, and Jabba. The father tells his 3 children that he's dying, and he plans to split the ownership of the criminal empire amongst them evenly. All 3 siblings are outraged, and they're each demanding to be the sole leader. Zorba, the father, his booming laughter drowns out their arguments, but only one of you will control my affairs in the Sigma Quadrant. Embra, his only daughter, is annoyed and she responds, "Father, the Sigma Quadrant's been a ghost town for centuries. There's no money way out there." Zorba, the father, declares, "Well, I haven't told you the best part." And Jabba interjects, "Out with it, old man, before you die." And Zorba explains, "Each of you will enlist and entice the most cunning bounty hunters to retrieve the fabled Basilica crystal. The one who delivers the Basilica to me will be given control of the Sigma Quadrant." Malta, the third offspring, interjects with a snotty tone, "You've lost your mind in your old age. Why should we go through all this trouble for some gem, if it even exists? What's stopping us from killing you now and selling your affairs in the Sigma Quadrant for scrap?" At this moment, all the guard details of all the huts jump into defensive stances. They're all pointing, there's a standoff. They're pointing their rifles at each other. And after a tense moment, Zorba lets out a hearty laugh. "Kill me if you'd like, but my affairs in the Sigma Quadrant are worth more than our lives put together. Our entire fortune is built on what we make in the Sigma Quadrant." All 3 siblings grow quiet, and they glance at each other in curious anticipation. Malta, now intrigued, asks, "Father, what exactly are we making in the Sigma Quadrant?" And with a glint in his eyes, Zorba responds with a devilish grin, "Clones." And then and then we cut to Skywalker is tromping through the thick forest underbrush behind Ben. They've landed on the Fantor 5, the planet, where they're going to attempt to get their friends back. We were reminded of his injuries that he sustained on Yinza, the kind of like seedy underbelly planet, by his soft wheezing of this respirator and his black metallic arm. The 2 stop in a clearing where shafts of light are poking through the thick forest canopy. They're sweating, they're visibly winded, and they're carrying firewood. We see that they're lost and they've been walking in circles for hours. They head down another path and begin to hear a faint melody. Sounds kind of like an old woman singing, kind of a creepy melody. They follow the singing and they come upon a small ramshackle hut. There's no door or walls. And in the middle of a hut, there's an old woman hunched over a fire. She's tending to a bubbling cauldron, and her long white hair is kind of concealing her face, but we hear that she's the one who's been singing. They look at each other cautiously and they approach the hut. The singing stops, and the old woman addresses the 2 by name, but without looking at either of them. Staring into the cauldron, she tells Ben that he will one day become a great teacher, and Skywalker will one day become a great leader. The woman begins to cackle maniacally, and she raises her face to Ben and Skywalker, and the 2 run for their lives into the forest. And all at once, they stumble into a clearing where Kira has set up the camp, awaiting for them to return with the firewood. Kira sees their faces and says that it seems like they've seen a ghost or something. And neither Ben nor Skywalker ever speak of the encounter with the witch ever again. That night, the team hatches a plan to steal back the Basilica and save their friends. And so, moving on to Act 2, our heroes sneak into bushes near the enemy camp. We see that Lugnut, Ben's droid, is making repairs to Gannix's ship, while the rest of the enemy crew are drunkenly harassing and torturing Skywalker's pet Clover. Gannix is sitting with his right-hand man, and they're admiring the Basilica. He tells his lieutenant to inform the Hutts that they're returning with the precious gem. They'll be returning to Nal Hutta as soon as possible. So while Ben sends a code-like, kind of Morse code-like message to Lugnut to prepare to run, they're going to come save them. Skywalker is visibly enraged by their treatment of Clover, his best friend, and he notices a large rotting tree that's towering over the camp. And the more Skywalker focuses on the rotting tree, the more it starts to tremble and shake and crack. And all of a sudden, the tree comes crashing down on the enemy camp, and it nearly crushes several crew members. And in all this confusion, Kira sneaks behind Gannix to steal the Basilica, while Skywalker and Ben rush to save Lugnut and Clover. However, if you remember from the cliffhanger from episode 1, Gannix's crew knew to expect them, and Ben and Skywalker are immediately surrounded and apprehended. However, Kira successfully steals back the Basilica and rushes back towards Ben's ship with the prize in her hand. Her mood is she's triumphant, she's overjoyed, but we see that her kind of joy starts to wane, and we can see that she's having an internal struggle as to whether she should just leave with the prize that she had in the first place, collect her prize money, or should she stay and try to rescue her friends. And she chastises herself as being foolish and jumps on Ben's ship and prepares for takeoff. Now, Skywalker and Ben are prisoners. Gannix explains that while he'd rather kill them and just be done with them altogether, they're worth more if they're sold as slaves. So Gannix orders, get them on the ship. We're leaving as soon as the repairs are finished. And the mercenaries gather up their camp, but one thing they find is missing: the Basilica. Gannix is enraged and he orders his crew to prepare to pursue Kira immediately. All of a sudden, Kira emerges from the bushes holding the Basilica. She prompts Gannix to return her friends and she'll give back the crystal. Gannix laughs, and we see that one of his goons is hidden in a tree with a sniper rifle pointed right at Kira. Skywalker focuses all of his focus on the sniper at the same moment that Gannix signals to the sniper to fire at Kira. As the sniper pulls the trigger, Skywalker's focus pulls the laser's trajectory away from Kira's head down towards the Basilica. The laser blast hits the gem and it explodes into a million pieces. And Kira is knocked backwards, unconscious, into the bushes. Gannix is furious. The whole camp is in an uproar because the Basilica is destroyed. And Gannix puts Kira's unconscious body over his shoulder, and he demands that the crew members gather up what's left of the gem and prepare for liftoff. And in all this chaos, we see Clover sneakily retrieves 2 shards of the gem, and he shows them to Lugnut. And that night, as the enemy crew sleeps, we see Clover and Lugnut making 2 very modest necklaces with those tiny shards. Clover fits them around Skywalker and Ben's necks as a tearful parting gift. And now we move on to Act 3, and this will be very brief. Ben and Skywalker are loaded onto a slave ship at a rendezvous point. The 2 are being sold to a mining colony similar to where Skywalker escaped from in the first place. Gannix receives a large sum of currency for this exchange. Kira, Lugnut, and Clover will be offered alongside what's remaining of the Basilica to the Hutts. Aboard the slave ship, we meet a host of downtrodden aliens from across the galaxy being sold into slavery. But there's one old creature alien who all the slaves seem to look to as a leader. And Ben and Skywalker befriend this old creature who over time teaches them to kind of calm themselves, and they learn some self-defense, and they're beginning a bit of training from this creature. In particular, the old creature helps Skywalker tune his focused mind powers, and Ben learns the art of persuasion. And then in a montage, we see that all of the slaves, led by the old creature and Ben and Skywalker, are secretly training and becoming kind of like a strong, cohesive group. They're learning self-defense, they're working together. And finally, the old creature sees that Ben and Skywalker have learned a great deal, and he helps them forge weapons using their crystals that are on their necklaces, and they make lightsabers. But maybe you can think of kind of like, in my mind, lightsabers don't like exist in this is just kind of like a prison shiv type thing. And then maybe
Okay.
as they get older, they like take the crystals out of what they've made. So these are like very crude versions of lightsabers, and then maybe they make better ones when they're older. But in my mind, I always like to think that there's only like 3 lightsabers in the galaxy. It's like this novel thing. And then finally, using their new training and a desire to again save their friends from the Hutts, and Ben and Skywalker lead a mutiny and commandeer the ship in a big final climax action scene, and they set a new course for Nal Hutta, and the credits roll.
God damn, dude. All right, yours is awesome. I really like your approach, your world. Um, it's so difficult for me when I come up with my ideas for this prequel remake to separate my thoughts from what I already know exists in the canon.
Yeah.
And yours really truly feels like an approach where you are able to put up the blinders and be like, I only want what I want from the original ones. Now let me like, let my imagination go, but keeping those elements at bay. I don't know, man. The intro with the huts,
Mm.
this tease of like cloning stuff, that I assume will be kind of brought back, and,
Mhm.
like, the 3rd one is, like, a big thing with Skywalker, and, I mean, he's gotta fall to becoming Darth Vader.
Mhm.
Fucking Yoda on this slave vessel.
Yeah, I was
Um
thinking either Yoda or maybe like isn't it like Yaddle or just a Yoda-like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
creature,
yeah.
you know?
Or, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, now in the canon, we have, like, Grogu, we don't know what he is, or I'm sorry, Baby Yoda. Um,
Oh, well, actually, you know what? I think you're right. Actually, it would have to be Yoda because Yoda trained Ben.
he does say that, but well, yeah, yeah, I mean, that's cool. I wrote down as soon as you said that, I've been taking little notes. I wrote Master Yoda on the slave ship.
Mhm, that's gotta be it. I'm just gonna officially say that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I love this idea. I love the idea of their powers being more there isn't like a rule set of like all Jedi know this
No.
or like
Yeah.
you're training to be a thing that it comes from this book and everybody learns how to do this. It's like everyone has innate if you are expanding upon the innate abilities that you have that
Mhm.
are specific.
Mhm.
It's like it reminds me of like mutants from
Yeah,
Marvel.
X-Men definitely is
Yeah.
how I was thinking of that.
Well, I mean, it's awesome, and Ganix is a cool name. Hey, Clover, I wrote
Mhm.
this down. Is that a reference, like a Cloverfield reference?
No, I've never seen Cloverfield. I was just trying to think of like a cutesy gizmo type
Okay,
name. Mhm.
right on. I just know that, I've seen the 2 that have the monster in it, from the Cloverfield series, and I think
Mm.
that's the common name that fans refer to it as is Clover.
Really?
Yes, yes,
Oh.
that it's like a giant spider thing, but I don't know, Clover's a cool name, and repurposing it, in like a gizmo sort of way is awesome.
Yeah, or even like a porg. Like I think the
Um
porgs are
Oh,
really
yeah.
cute, so it
They
could be
yeah,
that.
yeah, they are, the porgs, that's one of the cool things to come out of that ridiculous movie.
Mhm.
I wrote down that your description of the hut homeworld in the
Mhm.
intro reminded me of, like, a Mortal Kombat Outworld palace.
Definitely. Definitely.
You said there was, like, purple
Mhm.
smog?
Mhm.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, all these are just like kind of reference points. You're dead on with like, yeah, I think that was what was in my mind was like Outworld and those kind
Yeah.
of things.
I like their encounter with the witch early on where she says,
Yes.
"You will be a great teacher and you will be a great leader."
And
Oh,
that's just a Macbeth.
yeah,
Because if
yeah.
we discussed this in the previous podcast, that I think the strength of at least the New Hope, the first Star Wars, is that it follows the Hidden Fortress, Kurosawa's movie, and a lot of Kurosawa's classic movies are based on Shakespearean things. So that's kind of where I was taking that. And similarly, actually, with the Three Huts, that's the what Kurosawa movie is that, or a Shakespearean thing? Like that might even be.
Oh, King Lear?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's King
yeah.
Lear, and then I did a little Macbeth with the witch, and then
Whoa.
the Act 3 with this kind of mutiny, slave mutiny. I've never seen it, but I was like inspired by the story of the Amistad slave ship, where there's like a it's like
Whoa,
a yeah
okay.
historical.
Wow.
So these things I'm just literally just piecing in characters into like that's what I think Star Wars for me is like ripe for is you just take
Yeah.
like these like amazing stories and then throw in
Mhm.
cool world building and cool puppets and stuff, and then for me that's all I need in a movie.
That's awesome, dude.
Hmm.
I really like all of what I just heard.
Hmm.
Do you know where it's going?
Yeah, so I in the same spirit of like using maybe King Lear
Mhm.
or Macbeth um, as a bit of like a narrative thrust for episode 3. So they're all going to meet back up at Nal Hutta, and where all the huts are. They're expecting this great prize to be returned. But this slave ship that Ben and Skywalker have done a mutiny on and have commandeered is kind of going to be like a Trojan horse. So I was thinking is they like
Awesome.
show up at the cloning facility or something. They either
Awesome.
show up at the
Yeah.
cloning facility or at Nal Hutta, and they essentially kind of following like Return of the Jedi, just like blow up like Zorba's palace, which will I was thinking maybe kill Embra and Malta, and Jabba flees to Tatooine. That's like how because if you remember his palace on Tatooine is it's like a hermit crab type thing. Like he just like stole the thing from the Bamar monks or whatever they're called.
Yes. Yeah.
So I
Oh
figured
my
he could
god.
just like escape to the outer rim,
Whoa.
barely with his life, and then they blow up. And then the final kind of like I didn't put enough into this pitch on it. But if in my episode 1 pitch, like Skywalker, part of his character is like he has these like nightmares about where his family, but of course he's a clone, so he's having these kind of like recovered memories that aren't even his. So maybe he's trying to when they go to the cloning facility, he wants answers or something, but they end up blowing it up, so he never gets the answer that he wants. And then the thrust that kind of turns him, I guess, evil would be, I think, with um, with the King Lear idea that I believe in that one of the siblings wants to essentially like unify all of the like the kingdoms or whatever. And I was thinking that Skywalker might be interested in being like an agent of unification, like building a republic or a galactic empire, because
Nice.
um, he's like, the galaxy is lawless and the Huts are doing all this crazy shit. So maybe he has kind of like good intentions, but then it just gets way out of hand, and he becomes more mangled, and maybe he'll get even more hurt in the next movie and need more stuff.
For sure, for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah, so yeah, I like that he's partially on his transition to being Darth Vader already,
Yeah.
physically, like he is the whole time. We actually have honestly, there's a lot of elements that are similar in our pitches now, broad stroke wise. There were less so with just the first one, but now that I've heard both of yours, I think we are headed towards a similar place, and
Oh,
I think that is likely because a lot of these ideas were originally gestated in that road trip conversation we had like a
definitely.
decade ago, where we talked about our really broad, like we're going to talk about the entirety of the three movies. I know some big ideas from mine come from that conversation, and this whole idea of doing this podcast comes from that. So I'm interested when we're all done to
Hmm.
take, kind of a magnifying glass and look back at it and see just how similar these stories are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally. Yeah, that I mean that That's why we're having this conversation, is that we've already like hashed this out, but it was years ago.
Oh yeah. I also have to note, so you mentioned a comedian as your like one of your choices for Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
Is he was on I Think You Should Leave, right?
Yeah, he's in a comedy duo often with
Robinson?
Tim Robinson. Yeah, Sam
Yeah.
Richardson and Tim Robinson. Hmm.
Okay.
And they
I
could both be in it because I love
dude,
them.
yeah, now I'm imagining him as this character, and I mean, I think that's an excellent choice. I know, we know Anakin is a white dude,
Hmm.
but if he didn't have to be,
Hmm.
I really like that guy's look. There's an episode of that show where he is in like a sci-fi mech suit, and I have seen that at some point between when we last spoke and now. And while I was watching, I was like, "Holy shit, dude! He could do this. He could be that guy."
Awesome.
um, yeah, that's great, man. I'm excited to hear where it's going.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm excited to hear yours. Let's get into it.
For sure, for sure. So mine, if you recall in my original movie, the context was the Clone Wars is this ongoing thing. 30 years ago, the Republic had this situation where they made a clone army. There was a galaxy, a distant galaxy that their sun
Mm.
collapsed. They were fleeing their galaxy to seek refuge in the Republic, like the galaxy we know. And the clones basically they killed all these people or many of them. So since then for these 30 years there was this building tension, and that's what the separatists are. The war now is separatists who've developed droids. They're pissed because their people were not welcome 30 years previously. So the clone war that we're in, those are the factions.
Mhm.
2 years have passed since the end of the last film, where Anakin went to Tatooine, fought Darth Maul, found his mother dead, and then went and completed his Jedi training with Yoda. 2 years have passed since that. In our opening crawl, we established that the Clone War rages on. We're told that Anakin and Padme have now completely fulfilled their Jedi training commitments, but they have not yet been given command of their own legions. They are still working under the leadership of Mace Windu and Obi-Wan because the forces of the Republic are kind of wearing thin. They're not doing very well at this point in the war. And the Jedi and Republic leadership are worried about losing the few remaining Jedi that they have left. So they're not interested in splitting up the new Jedi into like leadership general positions where they might be more likely to die. A mission is currently underway to free the planet of Utapau, or Utapau. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm just straight up taking this planet from the prequels.
Mm.
So they're there and they're trying to free this planet from separatist occupation. The people of the planet are under siege by droids. So our opening shot, we're descending from space far away. We see the planet at a distance. We're kind of zooming. And as we get closer, we see the Republic command vessel that all of their drop ships would have come out of. We see that. And instantly it's surrounded by TIE fighters that come out of hyperspace and
Mm.
fire a volley of laser beams and seismic charges on it, and the ship explodes. Almost comedically. Like the first thing we see is the ship, and then it bursts into flames.
Mm.
We cut to the surface, and we see all of our heroes: Padme, Owen Lars, Obi-Wan, and Mace Windu, along with a legion of soldiers and clones. Anakin is noticeably not in the group. But all
Mm.
these people are staring up at the sky with horrified expressions on their face. Their vessel that they use to get to the planet it's on fire in the sky. So they're hiding out in overgrown ruins in a clearing with like a lush forest background behind them, and everyone, they're staring up there. The vehicle's on fire. They're about to go into battle, and someone's like, "What the hell do we do now?" And some intense dialogue is exchanged. Basically, Obi-Wan and Mace Windu declare, "We're going to finish this mission. We're going to liberate the planet, take out as many of these droids as possible, and we'll worry about getting home once the population of the planet is safe." So a sequence unfolds, which the squad are working their way through these ruins towards a large technological structure with what appears to be a satellite with kind of a beam of light shooting up into the sky. It's affixed to the top of it. Obi-Wan and Mace Windu give an order to the squad explaining that this is the control center for the droids in this region of the planet. If they can take it down, they might stand a chance of winning the fight. During the battle that unfolds, the clones, as seen in the previous movie, who I'm now going to just call clone commandos because I think that's badass.
Yeah, I love it.
So the clone commandos continue to display this like superhuman physical prowess and combat strategy. What I imagine is these guys are basically like Master Chief from Halo, if you've ever played that,
Definitely.
versus regular soldiers. So they're like they are clearly they're better than people. But they're
Mm.
old and there's not very many of them. So in the battle, Owen is nearly killed. He nearly gets shot, but at the last minute, a clone saves him. The group makes their way closer and closer to the control center, but they're surrounded by battle droids and droidica at the gates. The gates open, and a droid commander, maybe General Grievous, maybe,
Mm.
he marches out. They've got several prisoners. They're in chains,
Mm.
but these prisoners are they're being marched into like the sight line of a firing squad.
Mm.
But they're all ordained in like ornate armor, similar to
Mm.
like the red armor that the Emperor's guards
Yeah,
wear.
yeah.
So their faces are hidden. We can't see them, but we can kind of tell contextually that it's like, royal guard of this planet are being executed in like a fear sort of way. Like they're doing this to prove a point. So he raises his hand to issue the execution order. Suddenly we cut to a close up of one of the prisoners, and his shackles drop off of his wrists and fall to the ground of their own accord. The droid commander freezes before his arm can lower to issue the command. It's like he's being controlled by something outside of his own
Oh.
accord, and he fucking implodes in upon himself.
Nice.
And the prisoner pulls his helmet off, and it's Anakin.
No!
Anakin was undercover, and he ignites what he now has, which is a double-bladed blue lightsaber, like
Dude.
Darth Maul's lightsaber from the previous movie, and he springs into action. He is so powerful in the Force with technology at this point that he can prevent the droids from shooting anyone.
Mm.
And he literally is like Force jumping up the building, and he cuts down the satellite with his lightsaber. The battle is won. Anakin is a hero. Utapau has been saved, and that's our opening. Um,
Oh,
so
awesome.
we cut to this fast-paced sequence in which the Republic relief vessels land on the planet. They're getting the stranded soldiers out of there since their big ship was blown up. Anakin and Padme are reunited, and we immediately see that their relationship has taken a pretty big jump into this romantic affection.
Mm.
And Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, and Owen, they bond over their reservation towards one, Anakin's actions going undercover on the mission because nobody knew he was going to do that.
Mm.
They thought maybe he died.
Mhm.
And also Anakin and Padme are soldiers and they're Jedi, but now they're in this relationship and everybody's uneasy about that.
Mhm.
Mace Windu tells them that after they return to Coruscant and debrief with the government about the mission that just happened, he's going to take a pilgrimage to Dagobah to have counsel with Master Yoda on this Anakin situation. So we cut to Coruscant. They've arrived. The crew, our legion of Jedi, clone commandos, and soldiers are praised as, heroes, basically, for liberating Utapau. And during this welcoming ceremony, there is an unveiling of a new project to develop a droid army of the Republic.
Mm.
It's like a fight fire with fire. Don't let soldiers get killed. We're going to build droids to go fight instead,
That's a great
not
idea.
clones, droids.
Mhm.
And the figurehead, who is kind of like he's the face of the project, is Chancellor Sheev Palpatine from Naboo.
Mm.
He delivers this rousing speech pledging to spare countless civilian lives across the galaxy by converting the armed forces of the Republic to droid units. Anakin and Obi-Wan, they're watching this, and Anakin, he just is like, I think that's a real stand-up guy. He expresses support for the Chancellor.
Mhm.
Later, and this is just cutting. There'll be other scenes, but these are broad strokes. Later, Utapau, their government presses charges against Anakin Skywalker and
Mm.
has him arrested because he wore their royal guard armor. And on their world, this is a crime. If you have not been
Oh.
appointed the rank of royal guard, you can't wear this armor. And especially if you're an outsider, like an off-worlder. So because of the nature of the Galactic Republic, Anakin kind of has to stand trial for this,
Mm.
even though he didn't know, and even though he helped them.
Yeah.
They have a meeting, the Jedi, maybe some government officials, and the Utapau leadership. And this was all kind of a move. It was a ploy. They wanted to leverage a deal with the Jedi and this unit in particular. They know that Anakin is pretty much, from what they've seen, the most skilled warrior in the Republic army outside of the clones. But the clones don't have force powers.
Mm.
So what they want to do is have Anakin lead a mission commanding the clones to a Trade Federation droid manufacturing facility that they have recently discovered on the Outer Rim planet Kamino.
Mm.
They insist that this facility's destruction would ensure the end of the war. However, it is very dangerously hidden beneath a mine, which is also beneath the ocean. If a battle breaks out, this whole place could collapse.
Yeah.
So Anakin, he feels ashamed because he respects their culture. He was just trying to save their people. His whole agenda here. He was a slave. He does not like this idea of like droids or the separatist factions enslaving new worlds. So his whole thing is like liberation. So he feels like he wronged this culture. He owes it to them genuinely to do what they say, and he wants to end the war. So he's like enthusiastic about this mission.
Yeah.
But he really does want the clones to come with as his unit specifically. So like our clone commandos, they agree. Obi-Wan and Mace Windu agree, and the mission is set to go. We cut to that evening. Anakin and Padme are sleeping together. It's like kind of a post-coitus situation. They've
Mm.
just been together, and they're having a passionate moment. Anakin reveals that he's still plagued by nightmares. Despite having confronted the death of his mother in the previous film, he's still haunted every night. He hears a voice in his head, and he doesn't know what's going on. He feels like he has, even though he's growing more powerful and powerful, he has less control over his emotions. Padme and Anakin, they share this tender moment, and it seems, from the audience's perspective, like they might have a prosperous future together as a couple.
Mhm.
We cut to Anakin shipping out towards Camino, the clone commandos. Before he leaves, Obi-Wan pulls him aside and he's like, Anakin, you need to watch your back. I don't think the clones or the leadership of any of these governments have your best interest at heart. They just see you as a means to an end
Mm.
because of your abilities. So during their trip through hyperspace to Camino, we see the sequence of Anakin. He's meditating, but because they're on the ship and it's in orbit, all the lights are red. I don't know. I imagine while they're flying, it needs to be dark in the ship for whatever reason. So it's only red light. So he's bathed in this red light. He's meditating and he
Mm.
hears the voice of Palpatine in his head calling out to him, telling him it's time. It's time for him to awaken, to fulfill his potential. And for a brief moment, we kind of see the Sith yellow eyes flash over Anakin.
Mm.
They arrive at Camino, Anakin and the clones. Similar to Attack the Clones, it's this vast oceanic planet, the mixture of ancient ruins and kind of advanced sci-fi looking buildings upon the water. It's raining. They approach the entrance to the mining facility, which is like an entrance, but then it's like a drop off. It's an elevator basically that comes up out of the water.
Mm.
So I didn't write this in my pitch, but I like the idea of them going in and the clones are like, how do we hide? Like they're going to detect us for sure. And Anakin or one of the clones is like, oh, don't you know? We have the best star pilot in the galaxy on the ship. And they kind of all laugh at him. And then Anakin's like, oh, yeah, give me the controls. And he's able to successfully land the ship while avoiding detection from the whatever monitor or radar there is in the
Mm.
facility. Because I feel like we need sequences in every movie, for me at least, where Anakin pilots a ship really well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because that's like one of the only things Obi-Wan says about him is the best star pilot in the galaxy and a good
That's
friend.
that's true.
But okay, so they're going into the facility, they're sneaking in. Anakin's leading the clones, but you can tell that the clones, they have to follow his orders, but they have reservations about this guy. They descend deeper and deeper into the mine, and they notice that there's nobody there. And they also start seeing these offshoots that there's mining equipment, but then there's what also looks like an archaeological excavation.
Ooh,
And they're
cool.
seeing these like ancient ruins that are of a different style. And there are markings that Anakin's like, well, hold on, I recognize some of these symbols from my training on Dagobah. I
Mm.
think this is Jedi stuff. And at this point, everyone starts to get really suspicious about where they're at and where they're going and the nature of the mission in general. Eventually, they reach a point where the ancient, dilapidated mine and archaeological stuff kind of ceases, and everything is, it's like there's a spaceship or something underground. It's this vast, vast, technologically advanced manufacturing facility that comes out of nowhere. It's like bright lights, assembly lines. This is clearly where they build all the droids.
Mm.
They see stockpiles of droids, but they're not turned on. Just like armies sitting there, kind of like, not to reference Mortal Kombat again, but there's
Mhm.
the Dragon King has his, or I guess the Mummy 3 has the same thing. There's like the soldiers that are stone,
Yes.
that their souls could be returned to them and they would be the army of this leader. It's like that. There's just these armies, but they have no life to them. They're not on. So everyone's pretty creeped out and they don't understand. They're like, why would they're just storing them here? Like they're not making anything new. What is this place? This is the point where my um notes kind of drown out and I'm gonna be riffing a little bit.
Mhm.
But I know where this is going. So eventually they make their way to an area that is hidden even within this facility, and they discover what clearly are the droid um design, the model that was shown to the Republic by Palpatine.
Mm.
They're being manufactured there as well. And at that point, the clones and Anakin are like, well, hold on. So this is a ruse. Like someone's playing this war from behind the scenes. Like they're
Mm.
both being manufactured by the same people. And then they come upon a lab where they see one of these droids, but they're like opened up. And within the droid is a person. So
Whoa.
they're not droids at all. It's like a cyborg.
Yeah.
And the cyborg, the internal part, is a slave that has been brainwashed.
Whoa.
So Anakin sees this, and he's like fueled with that red hot Sith energy for a
Mm.
moment, and he's like freaking out. He's like, it's, we're getting played, and I'm being used as a pawn against the very thing that I thought I was fighting against. Like
Mhm.
I'm now perpetuating the exploitation of slaves.
Yes.
So he's really upset. The clones are like, they don't really have protocol for this, so they're kind of having a moment of extreme crisis when all of a sudden, thus far, there's been no one here. We kind of assume that it's like a droid, like a robotically operated facility,
Right.
but it's not on. There's no one detecting them. They have not come upon any defenses. All of a sudden, Darth Maul comes in. We haven't seen him
Mm.
since the previous movie. Maybe we establish in the opening crawl that he escaped after he got arrested, but we don't really know what happened to him. He comes out and he's like, hey, I lured you here essentially to show you that you were being played.
Mm.
Either you join me or I'm going to kill you because, and he, again, he doesn't reveal exactly what's going on. Just like in the last movie, he doesn't say like, there is a Sith who's training me, but he's going to kill me and then have you replace me. He doesn't say this, but he's like, together we can team up. I can explain to you what's going on, who you're hearing in your head, where your powers are leading. We can stop all of this. But if you don't want to come with me just on, faith, basically, I'm going to kill you. So he gives him this bad offer. And that's kind of Darth Maul's thing in this, I think, is that he doesn't communicate enough to get his message across.
Mm.
Um, so Anakin, if he heard him out, he probably would join him,
Oh.
but he doesn't because Darth Maul is a villain. So I can't
Mm.
have him just be this guy who's really good at explaining his side if his side is right, which it is, because he's getting
Right.
played just like Anakin's getting played. But we still don't know Palpatine or Sidious, so we don't really know him. He's a very vague
Mm.
background sort of character that we just met that one time when he unveiled the droids on Coruscant. But anyways, Anakin gets in a fight with Darth Maul. They both have double-bladed lightsabers, so I think that could be pretty cool.
Totally.
Something happens and the facility's defenses are turned on and the clone commandos have to fight. An explosion happens, and if you remember, they were warned that if a fight were to break out in this facility, it could cause a cave-in the mines above.
Right.
So they're under the ocean and in a mine that has like ancient ruins in it, and then in a facility even beyond that. So it all starts collapsing. The clones, unfortunately, are all killed. Darth Maul is able to flee, but Anakin, we see the ceiling basically collapse on him, and at the last moment, he's able to make like a force field out of the Force, but he
Mm.
still is trapped. So then we cut to this montage where the Republic leadership, the Jedi, and all the soldiers, it's reported that the facility was destroyed, but it was destroyed because it was flooded and it collapsed. So all of the soldiers, Anakin included, are dead.
Oh man.
So they all think he's gone. Padme at this point comes to Obi-Wan and Mace Windu and she says, "Hey, Anakin and I are in a relationship. We have a physical relationship and I am pregnant." So at this
Ooh.
point, Mace Windu is like, "Okay, I am officially going to Dagobah. I'm going to talk to Yoda and we're going to figure out what's going on because this is unprecedented within like the Jedi teachings. We
Right.
don't know what the right move is to do here because they're not supposed to I want to say it's the same thing as in the original prequels where they're not supposed to have families basically for whatever reason. Then we cut back to Camino. We see the native people of Camino, who I think should look very similar to the way they did in Attack of the Clones,
Mhm.
but instead of being this like creepy technology species, they're like a spiritual force in tune
Yeah.
species, and
Yeah.
they use their collective energy to pull Anakin out of the ruins of the mine, and they take him back to one of their cities, their floating cities on the ocean, and they fix him. They save him. He has maybe he had one robot arm before, but his chest was crushed, so he's fixed with like the Darth Vader chest piece, and a respirator comes
Mm.
up over his mouth, and Anakin is in a coma, but during this coma we cut into his point of view and he's communing with Palpatine, who is basically saving his life
Whoa.
by teaching him to heal himself. So with
Whoa.
the Kaminoans' support and Palpatine, Anakin comes through this, but when he awakens, the Kaminoans, they do this kind of like ritual and they bestow him with the new name Darth Vader, which maybe
Mm.
in their culture it is significant to his seemingly like his death and resurrection basically.
Right.
So it's like a rebirth sort of name.
Totally.
It doesn't have like a convention like there aren't Darth something. Like, I don't ever
Mhm.
want to call Palpatine Darth Sidious in my thing. I just want him to be Emperor Palpatine.
Right.
Like, I even think it would be cool if on the in the part where Anakin confronts Darth Maul, I think it would be cool if Darth Maul is like, I can tell you, whose voice you're hearing in your head. I can tell you all about him. And Anakin's like, okay, who is he? Like, what do like calling him out on it? Like, all right, give me a name. He says, the Emperor. He's like, the
Mm.
Emperor of what? And he
Yeah.
says, the Galactic Empire. And at that point, Anakin like ignites his lightsaber. Is like, there is no empire, and they fight.
Nice.
But it's because Darth Maul knows the plan.
Mhm.
And I think the fall of the Republic should happen in the background.
Yeah.
And kind of basically that's all I have. I think at the end of this movie, Anakin has become Darth Vader on another
Mhm.
planet. Maybe they get word of this. I don't even want to necessarily go into it. I thought maybe he should get burned at the end of this one, but I want to save that.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm going to end it. Anakin has been resurrected by the Kaminoans. Padme is pregnant. She's confided in the Jedi. Mace
Mm.
Windu has left to go speak with Yoda, and then I don't know. I don't really know from there. That's what I've got.
Awesome. Well, that was amazing. I just want to like commend you on taking a broad perspective, like galactic level things happening.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where it comes from. I like the refugee idea.
I do too.
I think it has to be something that's missing in the prequels that as they stand are, Anakin he comes from slavery.
Mhm.
He should have a really specific perspective. He knows what he's about because of that, and that should be kind of the lens through which we see the world.
Mhm.
And it isn't the case in the prequel. So this, I wanted it to, you see a lot of like Utapau is like basically enslaved to the droids. Camino, I think maybe is like a struggling planet.
Mhm.
The only like advanced and prosperous world we see is Coruscant.
Right. And that's like the center of like politics and
Yes, but I really think that stuff should happen kinda in the background, like, so
mhm.
here's where I want it to go basically is Padme's pregnant, right? So
Mhm.
she can't be a Jedi in the army anymore. She is pregnant with child. They're not gonna let her go into fucking battle.
Mhm.
So instead, they say like, "Well, you have a history in politics. You were the queen when you were a
Mm.
kid. Like, you need to be an ambassador helping to get legislation through. Palpatine's from your planet too. He had this droid army. Like, what about that stuff?" Well, it
Mhm.
turns out the whole droid army thing was basically it was an experiment that didn't it was never going to work. But it was an experiment, and the announcement was basically a trigger of events to trick Anakin into going out to the planet and discovering this and falling to the dark side, which is
Mm.
convoluted. But also, I think maybe the clone commandos in their legion, perhaps by the time the second movie rolls around, they're all that's left.
Yeah.
So the death of those clones is extremely significant, and the DNA used to create them is now lost.
Oh,
So they
nice.
can't make more of the same guys after that
Mhm.
point. So the mission was not only to destroy the facility to erase the evidence of having enslaved these people and turn them into droids,
Mm.
but also to maybe turn Anakin to the dark side and also to kill the remaining clones and erase their DNA from existence.
I love that.
The other thing that I have in mind is that Darth Vader in the third one is being controlled mentally by Palpatine, but he doesn't exactly know who this guy is. He just knows it's the person calling the shots.
Mm.
And the Kaminoans are like very force sensitive, but they've also been kind of corrupted by the influence of Palpatine.
Oh.
And so they are supporting him and giving him like he's basically being propped up as like a new separatist faction because
Mm.
now he's anti-republic because he thinks the republic is enslaving people and turning them into droids. That there is no plan for clones. It's going to be forced servitude in the army. So he's like, we got to do something. We got to stop this. And what he keeps hearing is like, the republic must fall an empire must be born in its place. So
Ooh.
he is like, that's the way. We got to, it's the empire. It's like Darth Maul said. And basically he is told to go assassinate an ambassador who is going to be making some rules, or like, I don't know, drafting legislation or something, or having discourse on Mustafar.
Mm.
He is not told who the politician he's sent to assassinate is. He's told that this will ensure the fall of the Republic. So Anakin's a patsy. Like, he thought going to the
Mm.
droid facility would end the Clone War. In the third one, he thinks killing this ambassador will cause the Republic to fall and they can create an empire.
Mhm.
It turns out the politician is Padme, and Anakin's a stupid
No.
idiot, and he goes there, and Obi-Wan chops his arms and legs off and kicks him into a volcano. Uh, so that
Nice.
that still happens in the
Yes.
third one, but,
Oh,
that might
hell yeah.
be, as I'm saying it, this doesn't sound better necessarily. It just sounds convoluted in a different way.
No, I don't think so. I think you've streamlined it a lot better.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you think that. The Kaminoans, the like mining collapse and Anakin being named Darth Vader after like kind of like a resurrection. That's
Mhm.
something that I remember from our original pitch when
Mm.
we went on that road trip and talked about it, that I
Mhm.
really wanted to include, that his like metamorphosis into
Mm,
Darth
mhm,
Vader
mhm.
is of his own accord a little bit.
Mm.
I just hate the scene where Sidious in Revenge of the Sith is like, "Rise, Darth Vader," and
Mhm.
it's like, what the fuck? What does that mean? What are you talking
Right.
about?
Right.
Where if the people of Camino are like, "You have survived when you shouldn't have," like, this
Mm.
is significant. This makes you Darth Vader or something
Right.
like that. I think that's cool.
I completely agree. I think I love all the world building and just everything that you've done with the Kaminoans and that world. I think is like perfect for that. Like, they're force sensitive. They have this beneath the ocean is where the mines are, and then the cloning facilities or whatever are like down there.
Oh yeah.
And that like archaeology aspect, it's just, oh my, it just sounds so awesome. And I especially love that idea that the mines collapse, but then there's kind of this like force bubble where like Anakin is like, I'm not really familiar with Dragon Ball Z, but it kind of gives me like a little bit of the vibes of like Goku or whoever, where they're just kind of like in stasis, but they're like,
Yeah. So there's a part in Dragon Ball Z that this is directly influenced by. So Goku becomes Super Saiyan on Namek. He defeats Frieza. For anyone who doesn't know or doesn't care, I'm going to
I
talk
don't,
about
yeah,
DBZ now. But okay, so Goku becomes Super Saiyan. He defeats Frieza.
okay,
Frieza's actions on Namek cause the planet to fucking explode.
oh,
Um, Frieza is killed. Actually, you know what? He's not killed, but he's blown. Him and Goku are blown into space. Basically,
mm,
Goku is floating around in space, and he is discovered by a distant species on a planet called Yardrat,
hmm,
and they look like fish people. They're like monks, but they're fish people, and they heal him, and then they teach him a ton of new abilities.
that's
And
awesome.
this is where Goku learns how to instant transmission, so he can teleport across the universe.
Ooh, cool.
So he comes out of this place like with new moves.
Hmm.
So that's what I was kind of thinking. Anakin, after his experience on Camino, that's where he is. He's like, even though he
Mm.
got really hurt, he has upped the ante in terms of power.
Right. I don't really know, but if this is the case, but it's like, I think it's cool when like if a character is, they're already powerful, but the more they like kind of get hurt, the strong. I mean, they keep
Yeah.
getting. It's like a nuclear like meltdown in slow motion type thing.
Well, that's kind of the whole Dragon Ball Z thing. Like the Saiyan
Oh,
thing in
really?
general is like, if they are taken to the brink of death, they will be X amount stronger when they heal. There's a
Really?
part in Dragon Ball Z where Vegeta, not again, we're going to talk about DBZ.
It's news
But
to
it's
me.
in that same Namek saga. Vegeta, he realizes he's not strong enough to defeat Frieza, but he should be, because he's the prince of all Saiyans and he should be the
Mm,
strongest. And for some reason, Goku, this commoner, is the strongest and he hates it. He's like fueled with this pride, this like royal prince. Like it really feels very Shakespearean.
mm-hmm.
He's filled with this pride and this rage and this resentment. And so he has Krillin literally blast a hole through his body, and then forces Dende, the guardian of Namek, who's a young boy at this point, to heal him so that he will up his power level so he can take on Frieza. But he
Mm,
literally it's like, like, all right, shoot me in the face and then heal me. Like, it's like that sort of thing.
right.
And they do it, and I don't know. Yeah, I always thought that was cool, that the more they get hurt, the more they almost get killed, they will just
Mm-hmm.
keep up, and yeah, it's like nuclear.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Damn, I'm excited for what you got next.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you have next. There's some other stuff. I have this vague idea of part of like a plot running through the third movie would be Obi-Wan going on this mission to kind of find out the origins of what is happening. So like he goes to Tatooine
Mm.
and goes to the slave facility and maybe he talks to Watto.
Oh,
But this
nice.
time it's very serious. It's like in Harry Potter when they go looking for Voldemort's past,
Mm-hmm.
and they find out that like he was always fucked up.
Mm.
It wasn't like he turned into that at some point. Even as a kid, he was like that. I like the idea of them going to Watto and being like, "Tell us about Anakin and tell us what he was like when he was a boy." And Watto's
Mm.
like, he wasn't a boy. He was never a boy. When he was a child, he was
Ooh.
smarter than any person I've ever met. He could fix
Mm.
anything, and we never taught him how. That's not a kid. That's not a person. There's something dangerous about him. We got him. He won that race to get out of the planet because we knew on this world he would become the crime boss. And
Wow.
he's too smart. He was a danger, so we had to get him out of here.
I love that's such an awesome idea.
Yeah, but I don't fully know how that's gonna come into play because there'd be something like, you know, Anakin figuring that out and then understanding that, like, his potential has been nubbed. Like, he's been cut
Mm.
down his whole life against his will because he just
Mm-hmm.
is inherently better than people, and
Mm-hmm.
that being the full downfall into, like, "Well, now I'm gonna rule with an iron fist because
Mm-hmm.
people held me back my whole life."
Yeah, maybe the Jedi like council has like a file on him that he like gets access to.
That's I think it should be, yeah, like Yoda and Mace Windu. They were all fucking up. Yeah, even,
Mm-hmm.
like, Qui-Gon, he died in the first one at the beginning, but, like, maybe they all 3, they had a file, they were watching him his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
He was it was not an accident that he ended up in that squad and that
Mm-hmm.
they placed him under the training of Obi-Wan.
Yes, I love it. Do you have any plans for any kind of like love triangle business?
Um, not necessarily. I like the idea of, so Owen didn't really do a lot in my
Mm-hmm.
second one. I like the idea maybe he gets hurt and, they send him
Mm-hmm.
home, and at some point they go visit him, and he talks about how he served with Anakin for 3 years in the Clone War, and he was his hero, and he, you know, he always looked up to him, and in the first movie, they were friends. Everyone the crew was they were all good friends. It was like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the second one, everyone is distanced and
Mm-hmm.
separated, and it's cold and scary, and there's going to be these droids. There's not enough clones. I think Owen goes home, and what he tells them when they go to talk to him, basically to get the promise that he'll adopt this child,
Mm-hmm.
he tells them that he was afraid of Anakin
Mm-hmm.
after the events of the first movie. He never trusted him. He never felt like they got close. He looked up to him. He had this hero worship of him, and he never quite lived up to what he had in his mind because he wasn't a hero. He's
Mm-hmm.
a dark, tormented person with too much power.
Mm-hmm.
So even like the closest people to him didn't trust him the whole time.
Yeah.
Except for Padme.
Mm-hmm.
But I even think there should be elements with Padme in the third one where she's like, "I don't even know him. Like, I thought I
Mm-hmm.
knew him, but I don't know who this is. Like, I can't be having this liability, like, of this guy's children
Right.
existing." They gotta separate them, basically.
Mm-hmm. Or if they meet him after he becomes, Darth Vader. Not, he's not like a Sith Lord yet, but he's all fucking weird now because he's like engaged in his like metamorphosis, and they're just like, we don't know who this guy is anymore. Like
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
he's really
definitely.
creeping me out.
The next time they see him, he is gonna be way different,
Yeah.
way scary.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, he's halfway. He's halfway to being the Darth Vader that we know, and the final push is that I think he does accidentally assassinate Padme.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
but she at this point, she has given birth, and the children have been this, like, the catalyst to
Yes.
the children being hidden, and separated is, like, he can they don't ever want him to find out that he had children.
Ah, I love that. Love
Because
that.
so there's something that exists in the canon now, that I don't ever recall being something that I read about before. I read some comics in the old EU, but now there's this idea that Darth Vader, between the time when he fell in Revenge of the Sith and then for like many years, is a ruthless, just cold blooded killing machine. He is fully evil, like 100% corrupted. And then at some point in during the events of the original 3 movies, he finds out that the guy who blew up the Death Star, that the name is Skywalker.
Mm.
And at that point, he realizes that he has a son.
Oh, that's cool.
And because of that, he is able to find Anakin Skywalker again and become
Mm.
redeemed and return to the Jedi.
Ooh, that's
Uh,
really cool.
Yeah, the films don't give you that.
No.
You know what I mean? They definitely do not. But that's an interesting angle. So the fact that he
Mhm.
could come back, the thing that made him lose himself is the idea that he lost any chance at like family and a happy future that he ever could
Mhm.
have. Which I think is interesting, and could be fun to explore further.
I agree.
But okay, so we're running long here, but we
Mhm.
got good content. We both got interesting stories that I'm excited to hear more about. I think the last thing that I would want to talk about is any casting choices that you might have. I have like a whole new batch of people.
Oh, nice. Well, you should do yours because I don't have a single person. I forgot that that's like an aspect of this podcast.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry.
that's no, that's no problem at all.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, the last time you did say, is it Sam Richardson?
I'm sticking with Sam Richardson and now
Okay.
Tim Robinson is Obi-Wan. So,
Oh my god.
there
Okay.
you go.
All right. Well, I mean, I love Sam Richardson as Skywalker in your world. Did you
Mhm.
have someone for Ganix?
No, I'm still trying to even like picture I picture him as just like a giant, green guy, maybe with like a the eye patch.
Okay.
I
Do you
mean,
remember the villain in the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek? 'Cause that's who I imagine just from hearing the name
yes.
Ganix. It was
Yeah.
it's Eric Bana as like well, I think he's Romulan. I don't know. I'm not good enough with Star Trek
Mm.
to confidently say anything here.
Yeah, I don't remember who the bad guy is in the first J.J. Abrams Trek.
Well, anyway, I mean, okay, so like a big alien guy.
Yeah, big, imposing monster.
Okay,
Pretty much,
cool.
I don't have like any like humans in my vision of my pitches are like the ultra minority in every
Okay,
scene.
that's the Star Wars that I like when it's
Mhm.
all like puppets and people in costumes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But okay, so I do have some people. So what I kind of split it. One cast is as if it were filmed probably in 1999,
Nice.
around that time. And then the other cast as if this film were made today.
Mhm.
Someone that we didn't talk about last time as Anakin that we definitely should talk about is Leonardo DiCaprio
Mhm.
because he for sure was offered that role.
Mhm.
You can find interviews of him discussing it and getting real hush hush and kind of like all giggly about it because there's NDAs that they sign.
Mhm.
And they cast Jake Lloyd in Star Wars Episode 1 because he looks like young Leo.
Right.
But he obviously didn't do it, and that was for the best for him. But I can't look at it now without thinking that his particular type of stoic, troubled hero thing that he does a lot of the time might have saved the movies.
Mhm.
So that's
I agree.
my old school 90s cast version, which is not that inspired. I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to picture him like jumping off the speeder at the beginning of Attack of the Clones. Um
Yeah.
but if I picture the scene of him like, yelling at Padme about having murdered the Tusken Raiders, that in my head is a good scene now.
Mhm.
Um, so there's give and take. But okay,
Yeah.
so my other one is an actor you may not know, and this is as if this film were made today. I recently saw the movie The True History of the Kelly Gang, which is a film about Ned Kelly, and the actor who plays him in that movie, his name is George McKay. He looks like a Tolkien demon, like a demonic figure, like Sauron as a man,
Huh.
just as a person. He has a very skeletal face, is very, very gaunt, but also very strong. It's kind of like he reminded me of the kid in the movie Come and See, but grown up and
Oh,
like
totally.
strong.
Oh yeah. No, this is awesome.
So that's what I imagine as Anakin. And
Oh,
then
that's
so
perfect. I love that.
some of the other cast is the same, like Obi-Wan would be Ewan McGregor if it were
For
made back
sure.
in the day, Natalie
Mhm.
Portman as Padme. But then if it were made now, I kind of thought Tom Hardy as Obi-Wan,
Mhm.
especially paired up with that kid, George
Yeah.
McKay. I think that'd be a good dynamic duo. I also think Obi-Wan needed to be older because Alec Guinness is like an old man
Yeah.
in A New Hope.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's only like 30 years there, and Ewan McGregor is like 20 in the Phantom Menace. It just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense necessarily. There has to be some rapid aging. Mace Windu, I want to change my guy. I now have Idris Elba.
Nice.
I did have Denzel Washington in the '90s version, which I still think could have been cool.
Mhm.
And then, some weird ones here, Owen Lars, so I had Sean Astin as my guy for
Great one.
the early 2000s version,
Mhm.
but then now, do you know who Eldon Henson is,
Oh,
Hayek?
yeah, yeah, I recognize this guy.
He was also in The Mighty Ducks, and then more recently, he was Foggy Nelson in Daredevil on Netflix.
Hmm,
There's like a everyman classic, kind of endearing quality to him inherently as a person that
definitely.
I wanna see in that character, and if not him, Jesse Plemons,
Yes, I
uh,
that's who I
who's
thought
it's
this
this
was at first.
yeah, it's the same type of actor for
Oh,
sure.
totally, totally.
Um, and that's really it. The clones, I like the guy from Attack of the Clones. I want him to be them now
Yeah.
even because he's older, and in my film,
Mhm.
they're older. And then Sidious or Palpatine, as I was calling him, that's gotta be Ian McDiarmid. He's still alive. Why fuck with
Yeah,
it?
totally. If you did in the '90s now just because you said Jesse Plemons and this guy Eldon Henson, also if you did it in the '90s, it could be, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Holy shit.
That'd
Yeah,
be
that's amazing. And that, I mean, so, yeah, I had Sean Astin as my guy if it were cast in the late
yeah,
'90s.
that might be better,
Um, well, no,
honestly.
but, I mean, I can see them both going into the casting room together.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, that sounds like they would both be up for that role, or even, um oh god, I don't even wanna I was Jack Black in, like, a serious
Ah,
turn.
that'd be awesome. That could be cool.
Yeah, so I think that's what I've got. I would be game to move on to locking down the title.
Oh god, I haven't even thought about that.
Attack of the Clones is the worst title in the series.
Yeah.
It's really stupid.
Mhm.
The only good thing to come out of it is that joke in Superbad where Bill Hader is like, "Are you familiar with Yoda from Attack of the Clones?" Uh, um, that's I mean, aside from that, and that's he only says that because it's ridiculous to
Yeah,
say it
totally.
that way. So I mean, I wrote this out, and I think this is fine. Star Wars Episode 2: The Clone Wars.
Mhm.
They
Definitely.
made a film called Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and, when they it's an animated film, but they did that,
Mhm.
and then they did the spin-off series, and it's like, I don't know, it just kinda feels like a slap in the face
Mhm.
to us, like, the generation that was little kids when Attack of the Clones came out and had to, like, accept that that was forever the title of Episode
Mhm.
2. So
Yes.
that's what I have. I'm going with The Clone
I
Wars.
think that's great.
Even though is it like it doesn't sound weird. It should sound weird because it's Star Wars: The Clone Wars, wars
Oh,
twice.
no, it
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
we're locking it in. Our second film in both of our trilogies, is Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Oh, okay, so one thing I wanna ask you about yours, I wrote down some stuff. So
Mhm.
The Basilica getting accidentally
Mhm.
shot and blowing up into the crystal shards, which are then used to create their force
Mhm.
weapons. Um, is the Basilica actually a Kyber crystal, or does that idea just not exist in your vision?
I don't think it exists. I think it's just, I really struggled with this one because I was gonna say, like, maybe the Basilica is actually, like a power source needed for the cloning process, or, maybe it's like a map secretly or something like that. But then it's just like, it doesn't need to be anything, and they already have it. So I think no, I don't think it's like a special thing other than it's like a beautiful gem, and then maybe just through like sci-fi kind of wizardry, gems can be used to make swords.
That's cool. I like the vague nature of the creation of the lightsabers more than um, the idea that again, like there's a textbook that they read as
Right.
kids that says like
No.
you put this part here and then you insert the crystal into this
Hmm.
battery and now
No.
you gotta this how you make a green lightsaber.
Yeah. Like I was thinking, like it's kind of like a prison weapon that they just make, and it's like really shoddy and thrown together.
So, like, the blade maybe kinda looks like Kylo Ren's blade from the
Yeah.
sequels
Yeah.
where it's, like, wavy,
Hmm.
not as stable.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
and
that
really
stuff.
just that it's that those are the only 2, like, it's a novel thing that they kind of, like, come up with together, and, yeah, and then they just, Darth Vader eventually makes his own that's red, and then Obi-Wan makes one that's blue, and then Luke makes one that's green or something. So it's like a very those 3 are, like, the only ones in the galaxy.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, so in your story thus far, just correct me if I'm wrong, but they have not ever used these weapons. When we last see them, they're banding together with
Mhm.
what are kind of like the Jedi, but these slaves that have been trained by Yoda upon this vessel, and are awakening their own inherent abilities. But now they're going to fight Gannix and the Hutts. And until then, we have not seen any lightsabers. So presumably, we will see them for the first time in Episode 3.
Yeah, I think they brandish them, like, to scare the crew that they're doing the
Okay.
mutiny for, but that's about it. Yeah, and then maybe they'll brandish them 1 or 2 more times in the next movie.
Man,
Um,
that is restraint, the likes of which they would never, ever,
yeah,
ever have in this movie, but
for
I
sure.
love it.
Yeah, and
It's
I understand that, but I think, yeah, definitely it's way cooler if they just if you it's like, "Oh, like, are they gonna use it?" And they use it, like, once.
yeah,
Or
well,
they just, like, yeah, kind of like it's an intimidation because nobody knows what the hell it is, and maybe they don't even really know how to, like, wield it.
of course, yeah, if you had something like that and you just made it and you didn't know, what it was capable of and you didn't really trust yourself with it,
Mhm.
you would not just be swinging it around all the time because you might cut your fucking head off.
Mhm. Totally.
Right on. Awesome. Well, that's cool. That's all cool. I'm excited to hear where your story goes. I'm excited to
Likewise.
work on my own and develop it further. So we will certainly pick this up and pitch our Star Wars Episode 3. It's somewhere down the line.
Mhm.
Probably will not be called Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, probably not.
I can't guarantee after my experience with Attack of the Clones that I'm going to go back and rewatch Revenge of the Sith.
Hmm. I
I
think I will just because 'cause I've literally only seen it, like, once or twice.
I'm excited to hear that. I think the, like, conventional, opinion of those 3 films is that Revenge of the Sith is the kinda okay one,
Mhm.
and Attack of the Clones is, like, the absolute cartoon garbage one, and then Phantom Menace is the boring one.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I don't think they will who knows? They might remake the prequel someday, so I
Yeah.
will sign off by saying, if you're out there, if you're listening
Mhm.
and you have the power, please make this movie.
Please make this movie.
I am just a robot.